The moment you open your eyes, there's a window, a brief, extraordinary window where your brain exists between states, not fully awake, not still asleep. And in that window, the words you speak to yourself don't just echo in your mind, they become the operating instructions your entire system uses to construct the day ahead. Most people waste this window. They reach for their phone, they replay yesterday's problems, they speak to themselves the same way they've spoken for years, and they wonder why nothing changes. But here's what's actually happening in those first 15 minutes. Your nervous system is sampling your internal language and treating it as environmental data. It's asking, what kind of world are we in today? And whatever you tell it becomes the reality it moves to match. I need you to understand something that changes everything about how self-talk actually works. When you speak to yourself from the frequency of lack, trying to create abundance, you create what's called a coherence problem. The field can't resolve it. It's like trying to tune a radio to two stations simultaneously. You just get static. And this is why affirmations fail for most people. They stand in front of the mirror feeling broke, feeling stuck, feeling disconnected, and they say, I am wealthy, I am free, I am loved, while their entire nervous system is screaming the opposite. The words don't land. They bounce off the electromagnetic signature you're actually broadcasting. But there's a specific way to speak to yourself that bypasses this problem entirely, and it has everything to do with timing and the precise structure of your language. Your morning consciousness exists in what neuroscientists call the theta-alpha bridge state. Theta waves, the realm of deep meditation, subconscious access, memory consolidation. Alpha waves, relaxed alertness, creative flow, open receptivity. For about 15 to 20 minutes after you wake up, your brain is transitioning between these states. Your critical mind, the part that analyzes and doubts and protects you from new information, hasn't fully activated yet. The subconscious is still accessible, still impressionable, still accepting input without the filter of your conditioned identity. This is the state shamans and mystics have accessed through ritual for thousands of years. This is the state hypnotherapists guide people into for deep reprogramming. And you enter it naturally, automatically, every single morning, whether you use it or not. Here's what most people don't realize about language at the quantum level. Every word you speak carries a frequency signature, not metaphorically, literally. Sound is vibration, and vibration is energy arranged in specific patterns. When you speak, you're not just making noise, you're broadcasting an electromagnetic instruction into the field. And the field doesn't respond to what you think your words mean. It responds to the vibrational pattern embedded in your language. The feeling tone, the energetic signature, the coherence or incoherence between what you're saying and what you're actually emanating. This is why two people can say the exact same affirmation and get completely different results. One person says, I am abundant, from a state of already feeling abundant, just reminding themselves of what's true. The other says it from a state of desperate lack, trying to convince themselves of what they don't believe. Same words, opposite frequencies, opposite results. So let's talk about the three fatal mistakes that destroy the power of morning self-talk. The first one, speaking in future tense. I will be successful. I'm going to find love. I will heal. Future tense places the desired state perpetually ahead of you. It trains your nervous system to experience that state as something that hasn't happened yet, something you're moving toward but never arriving at. The field reads this as not now and matches that instruction perfectly. You stay in the frequency of becoming, never being. The second mistake, negation language. I am not struggling anymore. I don't feel anxious. I'm not broke. Your subconscious mind doesn't process negatives the way your conscious mind does. When you say, I am not anxious, your brain has to first reference the concept of anxiety to understand what you're negating. It lights up the same neural pathways as if you just said, I am anxious. You're actually reinforcing the pattern you're trying to release. The third mistake, and this one's subtle, you're speaking to yourself as a project to fix rather than a consciousness to align. I need to get better. I have to improve. I should be further along. This language structure positions you as broken, incomplete, insufficient. And your nervous system takes that as the baseline truth and organizes your entire experience around protecting and proving that identity. Now let me show you what actually works. The precision formula is this. Present tense identity statements spoken in SECs.
Bond person that describe the version of you already operating at the frequency you're choosing. Second person, not I am, but you are. And here's why this matters. When you say I am, you're speaking from your current identity. Now, your current identity has a momentum, a history, a well-worn neural groove. It's already defined. But when you say you are, you create a slight dissociation. You're speaking to yourself as if you're already the consciousness observing your identity. You're addressing the version of you that exists beyond your conditioned patterns. You're talking to your nervous system directly, giving it instructions from a place of authority rather than from inside the problem. So instead of I am confident, you say you are confident. Instead of I am abundant, you say you move through the world knowing there's always enough. Feel the difference? One is a statement you're trying to believe. The other is a recognition of what's already true about the consciousness you are. One creates resistance because it contradicts your current experience. The other creates alignment because it describes the frequency you're choosing to operate from. And here's the neurological piece that makes this so powerful.
Your brain has what's called a default mode network, the autopilot that runs when you're not consciously directing your attention. This network activates within minutes of waking up, and it immediately starts running your habitual thought patterns, your familiar worries, your standard self-criticism, your automatic stress response. But when you intervene in that theta alpha window with deliberate, present tense, second-person language, you interrupt the default mode network before it fully activates. You're literally creating new neural pathways in the most receptive state your brain enters naturally. Here's the exact practice. You wake up. Before you check your phone, before you start planning your day, before you let the momentum of your old identity take over, you sit up. You can stay in bed or move to a chair, doesn't matter. What matters is you're upright, alert enough to be conscious, relaxed enough to still access that theta alpha bridge. You close your eyes or soften your gaze, and you begin speaking to yourself out loud, not in your head. Out loud, your voice creates a vibrational field. It engages your auditory system. It makes the words physical, not just mental. It grounds the frequency into your body. You start with acknowledgement, not gratitude, affirmations, not toxic positivity, just simple, honest recognition of what's true right now. You're awake, you're breathing, you're here. This isn't small, this is you establishing your presence as consciousness before your identity takes over. You're reminding your system that you exist beyond your circumstances. Then you move into identity. You speak to yourself as the version of you already operating at your chosen frequency. You are someone who trusts the process. You move through uncertainty with clarity. You know how to read the field and follow what's alive. Notice these aren't outcomes. These are states of being. You're not saying you have $1 million or you've met your soulmate. You're describing the consciousness that naturally attracts and allows those things. Then you give the field its instructions. You're available for the opportunities that match this frequency. You notice the synchronicities. You act on the subtle pulls. You let the old stories dissolve without making them mean anything about who you are. This is where you're telling the quantum field what to organize around. You're establishing your coherence pattern. You're clarifying the signal you're broadcasting. The entire practice takes about 5 to 7 minutes. That's it. But those 5 minutes in that specific state of consciousness have more reprogramming power than hours of meditation later in the day when your critical mind is fully active and your nervous system is already locked into its habitual frequency. Now let's talk about what's actually happening in the field when you do this. Quantum physics tells us the field exists in a state of infinite possibility until an observer collapses it into a specific reality. Your observation isn't passive, your observation is creative. But here's the part most people miss. You're not just observing with your eyes or your attention. You're observing with your entire electromagnetic field. Your heart generates an electromagnetic field 60 times stronger than your brain. That field extends several feet beyond your body, and it's constantly broadcasting a frequency pattern based on your emotional state, your nervous system state, your coherence or incoherence. When you speak to yourself in that morning window using this precise language structure, you're creating coherence. Your words, your nervous system, your electromagnetic field, they all start broadcasting the same signal. And the quantum field responds to coherence. It organizes around it. It collapses probabilities that match it. So you're not just reprogramming your mind, you're recalibrating your field. You're changing the vibrational instruction you're sending out into the matrix of possibilities that surrounds you. And here's where it gets wild. The field doesn't distinguish between your current circumstances and your current frequency. It only responds to frequency. So when you consistently broadcast the frequency of someone who already is what you're choosing to become, the field starts collapsing the circumstances, the people, the opportunities that match that frequency, not because you're manifesting or attracting, because you're aligning, you're becoming coherent with a probability that already exists, and that probability moves from potential into your actual experience. But I have to be honest with you about what happens next. The first week, maybe 2 weeks, this is going to feel awkward. It might feel fake. You might hear yourself speaking these words, and your mind will immediately say, this isn't true, you're lying to yourself, this is just more spiritual bypassing. That voice is your old identity protecting itself. It's your Defi or
alt mode network sensing a threat to its existence. This is actually a good sign. It means you're working. It means you're accessing the layer where real change happens. The resistance you feel isn't evidence that the practice doesn't work. It's evidence that you're dissolving an identity structure that's been running your life unconsciously. What you're going to notice around day 7 or day 10, your external reality will start testing your new frequency. Old situations will resurface. Old triggers will activate. People from your past might randomly reach out. This isn't the universe punishing you. This is the field checking your coherence. Are you really this new frequency, or are you just performing it? When the test comes, when the trigger activates, and you maintain your new baseline, instead of collapsing back into your old patterns, that's when the transformation locks in. That's when your nervous system realizes, oh, we're actually doing this. This is the new normal. Somewhere between week 2 and week 4, something shifts. The words you've been speaking to yourself every morning start becoming your automatic thoughts throughout the day. You'll catch yourself in a moment of stress, and instead of your old panic response, you'll hear your own voice saying, you know how to navigate this. You'll face a decision. And instead of your old doubt pattern, you'll hear, you trust what's alive, you follow the pull. This is the practice becoming your identity. This is you naturally operating from the frequency you've been deliberately choosing every morning. And here's what changes in your actual life. Not all at once, not dramatically, but undeniably. You start noticing opportunities you would have dismissed before. Conversations that lead somewhere unexpected.
resources appearing exactly when you need them, people responding to you differently because you're broadcasting a different frequency and they're unconsciously picking up on it. Decisions becoming clearer because you're not tangled in the old stories anymore. Your baseline state shifting from survival and reactivity to openness and clarity. This isn't about becoming someone else. This is about dissolving the layers of conditioning, the patterns of lack, the frequency of struggle that you absorbed and adopted and mistook for who you are. Every morning, when you speak to yourself in that window, you're reminding your system of what's actually true. You are consciousness using a human nervous system to have an experience, and you get to choose the frequency of that experience. You get to choose the coherence pattern your field organizes around. You get to choose the identity you operate from. The transformation isn't something you're trying to force into existence. It's something you're allowing by getting out of your own way, by stopping the unconscious self-talk that's been keeping you locked in the old frequency, by using the most powerful window of the day to recalibrate your entire system. So tomorrow morning, before you reach for your phones, before you let the momentum of your old patterns take over, before you speak to yourself the same way you've spoken for years, you pause, you sit up, you close your eyes, and you speak to yourself like someone who already knows what you're choosing to become. You speak to yourself like consciousness addressing itself. You speak to yourself with the precision and the presence and the authority of someone who understands that language isn't just communication, it's creation. And you watch what happens, not just in your mind, but in your life, not just in your thoughts, but in the field, not just in your morning practice, but in the entire structure of your reality as it begins to reorganize around the new frequency you're finally, consistently, consciously broadcasting